The Amish are known for shunning modern power. We think of them as totally off the grid, relying on horses and hand tools. But that's only half the story. The truth is, during a huge blackout, their homes often have more working power than yours. While entire towns went dark, their lights stayed bright, their fridges ran. They built a shadow energy network right under our noses. This isn't just about simple living. It's about pure genius. So how do they pull it off? It's easy to think the Amish are just stuck in the past, but that's not it at all. They aren't against electricity. They're against being tied to our world. For them, the public power grid isn't just a bunch of wires. It's a direct link to a way of life that they believe could weaken their families and their community. Relying on a big, faceless power company is the exact opposite of their #1 rule. Be self-sufficient. So they disconnected. Not from power, but from the grid. They decided if they were going to have electricity, they were going to make it themselves. And this is where the genius part comes in. They started creating their own private power systems, hiding in plain sight. You might be picturing candles and lanterns, but think again. Think solar panels. Seriously, today about half of all Amish homes in Pennsylvania have solar panels. They're using modern tech to power their homes, run their workshops, and keep their businesses alive, all without ever connecting to the grid. They're not rejecting the modern world. They're carefully picking the parts of it that help them stay independent. They've found a way to use 21st century tools to protect a 19th century way of life. And it works. But that word, independent, is more important now than ever. Because the system the Amish walked away from, it's a lot more fragile than we like to admit. We've built our entire world on top of a network that's stretched to its absolute limit. It's a technological marvel, for sure, but it's also got a glass jaw. Think about it. When was the last time you went a full year without hearing about a major power outage somewhere in the country? A storm, a heat wave, a wildfire? It doesn't take much to knock millions of people into the dark. This isn't a fluke. It's a design flaw. Our power grid is really old. Much of it was built in the 1950s and 60s, designed for a world that looks nothing like ours. We're talking transformers the size of small cars that have been sitting out in the elements since before the moon landing. We're trying to run a 21st century digital society on hardware from the Eisenhower era. It's like trying to stream 4K video on a dial-up modem. At some point, it's just not going to work. The system gets overloaded, and it breaks. And it breaks a lot. The Department of Energy has said that weather is now the #1 cause of power outages in the United States. And the weather is only getting more extreme. Hurricanes are stronger. Wildfires are bigger. Ice storms and heat waves are pushing the grid past its breaking point year after year. Every time one of these events happens, we see the same pictures on the news. Downed power lines, neighborhoods in the dark for days, sometimes even weeks. The grid simply wasn't built to handle this kind of punishment. It was designed for a more stable climate, and that's not the world we live in anymore. But the weather isn't the only problem. We are. Our demand for electricity is exploding. Think about what we ask the grid to do today compared to 50 years ago. We're plugging in electric cars, running massive data centers, and powering homes where every single device is smart and connected to the internet. We're asking for more and more power, but the system that delivers it has barely changed. It's like adding more and more cars to a highway without ever adding new lanes. Eventually, you just get a permanent traffic jam. For the grid, that traffic jam looks like a brownout on a hot summer day when everyone turns on their air conditioning at the same time and the system just can't keep up. And here's the scariest part. Because the grid is one giant interconnected machine, a single point of failure can trigger a domino effect. One downed power line or one failed substation can cascade across an entire region, plunging millions into darkness in a matter of minutes. It's also an incredibly vulnerable target. A few years ago, a sniper attack on a single substation in California nearly took out the power supply for Silicon Valley. Experts have warned for years that a coordinated physical attack, or even a sophisticated cyber attack, could cripple the entire national grid. When you look at all this, the Amish decision to step away doesn't seem so old-fashioned. It starts to look like one of the smartest, most forward-thinking moves anyone could make. They saw the weakness in the system long before the rest of us did. They didn't walk away from progress. They walked away from a system they knew they couldn't count on. And they built something better for themselves, something stronger, something that actually works when everything else fails. So what does that better system actually look like? It's easy to picture the Amish living by candlelight, completely cut off from modern power. But that's a huge misunderstanding. The core Amish rule isn't no electricity. It's no connection to the public grid. They see that big, sprawling network as a literal and symbolic tie to the outside world, a dependency that could weaken their tight-knit communities. They want to be self-reliant, not tethered to a system they can't control. There's a great story that perfectly explains this. A guy who hired an Amish crew to build his barn said he was fascinated watching them work. They used all the modern, battery-powered tools you'd expect. Drills, saws, you name it. But when the batteries ran low, they couldn't just plug the charger into the wall. They had to come ask him, the non-Amish homeowner, to do it for them. They could use the power, but they couldn't be the one making the connection to the grid. That one simple rule has forced them to become incredibly creative. They've basically built their own private, independent power systems. A kind of shadow grid. It's not just one thing. It's a mix of technologies tailored to the job. For their famous woodworking shops, many artisans use pneumatic tools. They're powered by highly compressed air from a compressor, not a wall socket. For bigger jobs, like running a commercial dairy farm, a diesel generator is often the workhorse. But the real game changer, the technology that has quietly transformed Amish life over the last couple of decades, is solar power. And its use is shocking. According to a report in the Times, an estimated 50% of all Amish households in Pennsylvania now have solar panels. Think about that. 1 in every 2 homes. This isn't some fringe experiment. It's a mainstream movement. And we're not just talking about a couple of panels to run a few light bulbs in a fridge. The technology has gotten so good, so efficient, that it's completely changing what's possible. James Mast, who founded a company called Arc Battery specifically to serve this need, says modern solar and battery systems can now power entire farms and demanding workshops. They've found a way to bridge the gap. They aren't rejecting technology. They are carefully choosing which technologies to use, and more importantly, how to use them. They're harnessing the best parts of the 21st century, clean, reliable solar power and battery storage, to support a way of life that's been around for centuries. They built their own grid, one that doesn't break when a storm rolls through or the summer heat gets too intense. One they own, they control, and they can count on. So what does this unbreakable, independent grid actually look like? It's surprisingly simple, and it's a system you could build for yourself. It all starts with the sun. Solar panels are the first step. They're the engine of the whole operation, capturing raw energy from daylight and turning it into usable electricity. This is the part everyone knows. But it's the next piece of the puzzle that makes the system truly blackout-proof: the battery. This is the absolute heart of the Amish power system. It's what separates their setup from a standard grid-tied solar installation. Think of it like a water tank. The solar panels are constantly filling the tank during the day, but you're not using the water straight from the hose. You're using it from the tank. This means when the sun goes down, or a storm rolls in and the sky gets dark for 3 days straight, it doesn't matter. The tank is full, the lights stay on, the fridge keeps running. The power is there when you need it, not just when the sun is shining. This simple addition of a storage tank for electricity is what makes their system so incredibly resilient. The public grid has almost no storage. That's its fatal flaw. A sudden spike in demand or a drop in supply can crash the whole thing. The Amish system, on the other hand, is built around its own private reserve. Okay, so you have panels making power and a battery storing it. There's just one more crucial part: the inverter. This is the brain. The power that comes from solar panels and goes into a battery is called DC, or direct current. But almost everything in a modern home, from your lights to your phone charger to your power tools, runs on AC, or alternating current. They're 2 different electrical languages. The inverter is the translator. It takes that stored DC power from the batteries and converts it into the clean, stable AC power that your devices can actually use. Without the inverter, all that stored energy is useless. With it, you can run a modern workshop, a family kitchen, or an entire dairy farm, all completely disconnected from the outside world. Solar panels, a battery, an inverter. That's it. Those three parts create a closed loop. A personal microgrid. Power comes from the sun, gets stored in a battery, is converted by the inverter, and then used to power what's needed. Nothing leaves the property. Nothing needs to come in from a power line 100 miles away. This is why a storm that knocks out power for an entire county doesn't even cause a flicker in an Amish home. Their system isn't connected to that county. It's not connected to anything. It's a fundamentally different way of thinking about energy. We see power as a service we rent from a massive, fragile company. They see it as a resource they create, store, and control themselves. And that shift in thinking changes everything. It's not about rejecting technology. It's about mastering it. It's about building a system that serves you, not the other way around. One that works on your terms and never ever fails. But this whole setup, this personal power grid, isn't really about the technology. It's about the idea behind it. The Amish made a choice way back around 1920. It wasn't a ban on electricity itself. It was a ban on the public power grid. Why? Because they saw that grid for what it was. A permanent, unbreakable link to the outside world. Walk into an Amish workshop and you won't see them using hand-crank drills. You'll see modern pneumatic tools hissing away, powered by a diesel air compressor out back. You'll see businesses and farms running on big diesel generators, completely off-grid. They're using the power, but they're making it themselves. And that's the key. The rule is simple. If you generate the power on your own property, from a resource you control, it's okay. But connecting to a public utility, becoming just another customer, that's crossing the line. This is why the solar boom has been so huge in Amish communities. Today, it's estimated that about half of all Amish homes in Pennsylvania have solar panels on the roof. Modern batteries and efficient panels have made it possible to run not just lights and a fridge, but entire dairy farms and woodworking shops, all from the sun. And here's the most incredible part of this whole story. By sticking to these principles of simplicity and independence, the Amish have accidentally become leaders in sustainability. One researcher, Dr. Marilyn Lovelace, did a study in Ohio. She compared the Amish to their non-Amish neighbors. She found that the Amish produce about 3 times less carbon pollution from transportation. It makes sense, right? They're using a horse and buggy, not a car, for most of their trips. When you add in their widespread use of solar, windmills, and even systems that turn farm waste into energy, you see something amazing. Their traditional values, the very things that made them step away from the modern world, line up perfectly with the modern-day goal of true energy independence. It shows that self-reliance isn't about going back in time. It's about choosing your own path forward. So, what does this actually look like when everything goes wrong? Picture it. A major storm, a grid overload. It doesn't matter the cause. The result is the same. The power goes out. Not just for a street, but for an entire region. For most of us, that's the moment life grinds to a halt. The lights are off. The fridge is warming up. The internet is gone. Gas stations can't pump gas. Grocery stores can't run their cash registers. In an instant, the modern world is unplugged. It's a crisis. But for the Amish, it's just Tuesday. While the surrounding towns are dark and quiet, their homes are still lit. Their workshops are still running. Their refrigerators, often powered by gas, are still cold. Life continues, completely uninterrupted. This isn't an accident. It's the whole point. Their security comes from a simple fact. Their power is their own. It's generated right there on their property, from a source they control. For one family, it might be a diesel generator humming away, powering a woodworking shop filled with modern tools. For another, it's a bank of batteries in the basement, quietly storing energy from the solar panels on the roof. And this isn't some fringe idea. It's a widespread system. Experts in off-grid technology explain that these modern personal power systems are now strong enough to run entire farms and businesses, making their independence more secure than ever. It's a decentralized network where every home is its own power station. A regional blackout is physically incapable of touching them because they were never connected to it in the first place. There's a fascinating story that perfectly shows this principle in action. A man had hired some Amish builders to put up a barn. They showed up with modern, professional-grade, battery-powered tools, drills, saws, the works. They were fast and efficient. But at the end of the day, they did something strange. They brought their battery chargers over to the homeowner and asked him a favor. "Could you please plug these in for us?" Think about that. They were happy to use the electricity stored in the batteries. But their rules, their principles, stopped them from plugging a cord directly into a public utility outlet themselves. They wouldn't make that connection. That's the line in the sand. They will use the power, but they won't become dependent on the system that provides it. It's a subtle difference, but it's everything. When the world goes dark, two realities play out side by side. One is a world of dependence, where millions of people are suddenly helpless, waiting for a stranger hundreds of miles away to flip a switch. The other is a world of independence, a world where the lights stay on, the work gets done, and life goes on. Not because of some miracle, but because of a choice made 100 years ago. A choice to build a system that doesn't fail. Okay, so we've seen how the Amish don't just survive blackouts, they barely even notice them. Remember how we started thinking they were totally off the grid, but in a crisis, their homes often had more working power than ours? That wasn't just luck. It's because they're masters of independence. They figured out decades ago that putting all your eggs in one grid-shaped basket was a risky idea. While our modern world relies on a power system that's stretched thin and can fail in an instant, the Amish chose a radically different path. Their decision isn't about shunning technology out of fear, but about making careful choices. They want tools that strengthen their families and communities, not weaken them with outside dependencies. This has turned them into quiet leaders in off-grid living, creating a shadow network of power that serves them. And they're surprisingly modern about it. They're quick to adopt things like solar panels and battery storage. In fact, about half the Amish homes in Pennsylvania now have solar on their roofs. They also use windmills, water wheels, even systems that turn farm waste into usable fuel. It's a full, independent energy ecosystem. They're using today's best tech, but guided by centuries of wisdom. This unique approach means their homes stay bright, their fridges run, and their lives go on, even when entire towns around them go dark. Plus, their way of life is naturally greener. Their horse buggies, for example, put out 3 times less carbon pollution than regular cars. This isn't just about surviving a power cut. It's about true control. It's about the peace of mind that comes from knowing your power, your home, your life, doesn't stop just because someone else flipped a switch somewhere far away. It's about building your own security. The Amish story isn't just a quaint lesson from history. It's a powerful challenge to our own dependencies. They prove that you don't have to give up your world to gain true independence. You just have to rethink how you connect to it. They've given us a blueprint for reclaiming our own power, literally and figuratively. So, while we often take the grid for granted, the Amish have shown us it's just one option. And sometimes, the best options are the ones we build for ourselves. Right under everyone's noses, they make us ask, what other truths are hidden in plain sight, just waiting for us to see them? What else have we become dependent on without even realizing it? What systems can we build for ourselves that are truly resilient? If you want to keep exploring these hidden systems and surprising solutions that change how we see our world, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Stick around, because we're only just beginning to uncover what's truly possible when you look beyond the obvious. Don't miss what's next.